6 Creepy Uncle Horror Stories. It was the first week of October in Elk Grove, Illinois. The air was thick with early fall fog, and the streetlights cast long shadows on the cracked pavement. That's when we first saw him, standing under the rusted fire escape, motionless, with pale white eyes that didn't blink. Ava, 23, had just moved into the duplex with her friends Micah and Serena, both in their late 20s. They were working night shifts at the hospital and sharing rent in the quiet outskirts. The building was old, creaky, but affordable. No one paid much attention to the man who stood across the street each evening, at least not at first. He was tall, built like he'd worked a lifetime in hard labor, with short twisted hair and scars on his arms. Every night, he would stare directly into Ava's window from beneath the broken streetlight. Micah joked that he looked like a prison sketch-in, till one night he was seen inside the building. No one knew how he got in. No one had let him. The first confrontation came when Serena caught him inside the laundry room. He didn't move, just raised a hand, palm out, like a warning. His eyes rolled back, showing only white. Ava screamed when she saw him behind her in the hallway mirror. But when they turned, he was gone. One night, Ava came home alone. She found the basement door wide open, despite it always being locked. A note was taped to the top step. It had only one word: closer. When she called for Micah and Serena, they weren't answering. The lights began to flicker as a low hum vibrated from the basement below. She descended slowly. On the cement wall, dozens of drawings were scratched in, with fingernails each of them was her face. Behind her, a breath, cold and deliberate. He whispered her name. Not yelled, whispered. Micah and Serena eventually found Ava locked inside the laundry room, whispering something to the wall. She couldn't remember how she got there. The man was never caught. But now, he doesn't just stare from across the street. He shows up in reflections, in dreams, in corners of the room that should be empty. And the word keeps appearing, carved into wood, glass, even her skin. Closer. Ava moved out a week later, but Micah and Serena didn't, and the basement door won't stay shut. It was nearing midnight in Elk Grove. A cold front had rolled in, blanketing the neighborhood in wind that howled through the cracks of the aging duplex. Ava stood in the hallway, staring at a wet footprint that wasn't hers. Then she saw him again at the end of the corridor, half in shadow, watching. Micah had tried to tell her it was stress. Serena suggested sleep paralysis, but Ava hadn't slept for days. The man with the white eyes and scarred arms was no longer a distant figure. He was inside now, close enough to smell the rot in his breath. And he wasn't watching anymore. He was hunting. 3 nights ago, they found the mirror in the hallway shattered from the inside. Micah had cleaned it up, but the next night, it returned. Same cracks, same glass. Ava didn't even look anymore. Every time she caught her reflection, his face was over her shoulder, grinning. They tried to speak with the landlord, but Unit 3B had been vacant for months. Still, the sounds came from there nightly, scraping, humming. At 3:14 a.m., always the same time, Micah finally had enough. He grabbed a flashlight and went down to the basement, through the boiler room, and up the hidden stairwell behind the water heater that led directly to Unit 3B. Ava begged him not to go. Serena waited in the living room, whispering a prayer. Micah entered. It smelled like wet cement and sulfur. He scanned the walls. Something had been etched into them. Symbols, circles, eyes, all drawn in charcoal, or something darker. A soft knock came from behind the bathroom door. He froze. Another knock, then silence. The knob turned. There he stood. Same man. Skin dark and cracked like old bark. White eyes. One hand raised. Not in greeting, but to hush. His voice didn't match his body. It was soft. Too soft. Like a whisper in a cave. You're not supposed to be here. Micah ran, stumbled through the dark, slammed into the stairwell door, and didn't stop until he reached the second floor. But something had followed. That night, Serena screamed in her sleep. Ava found her standing outside her room, eyes open but empty, whispering the same sentence over and over. He's in the walls. The next day, they discovered a hatch in the ceiling of their apartment, hidden behind an old vent cover. None of them remembered it being there before. It was sealed shut with nails that looked hand-forged. Rusted, but new. They tried to ignore it, but every night, soft scraping came from above, then tapping, then voices. Serena couldn't take it. She called her cousin, a local medium from Chicago named Eli. He arrived the next day, quiet and skeptical, until he entered Ava's room. He left immediately. Said the place was marked. Something was invited in and never told to leave. Something old. He warned them not to provoke it, but the damage had already been done. Ava was waking up with marks across her arms, 3 lines, parallel, like fingers. Micah's nose bled every night at 3:14. Serena's hair had begun to fall out. Then one night, Ava disappeared. Serena and Micah found her in Unit 3B. The door wasn't locked anymore. Inside, candles were lit in a perfect circle. Ava stood in the middle, barefoot, eyes closed, humming that same low tune they'd been hearing for weeks. The man was behind her, not touching her, just breathing with her, in rhythm, perfect sync. Micah stepped forward. Ava turned and smiled, but it wasn't her smile. Her voice wasn't hers either. He just wants a home. The candles blew out. The room went black. A thud, then silence. Micah woke up in the basement, alone. Ava and Serena were gone. But the mirror was whole again. Only now, it didn't show his reflection. It showed the hallway. And in the hallway, the man stood, hand raised, eyes white, grinning. Micah turned to run, but the mirror vibrated. A whisper echoed from behind him. "You invited me." He turned and saw nothing. But he wasn't alone. Now he hears footsteps at 3:14 every night, always stopping just before they reach his door. And when he checks the mirror, he sees Ava, standing behind him, whispering, closer. It rained for 7 straight days in Ohio. On the 8th, the fog never lifted. At 2:47 a.m., Harper woke to the sound of someone breathing in her closet, not snoring, not gasping, just steady, low breaths. When she opened the door, he was already walking out. The man with scarred skin and white eyes didn't speak. He didn't need to. Harper backed away, tripping over the rug, knocking her lamp off the nightstand. The room flashed once in the bulb's fall. He was gone before it hit the floor. Harper had only joined Micah and Serena 2 days earlier. They needed help. Eli never came back. Ava was still missing. Harper, a forensic psychology graduate student from Ann Arbor, had studied cases like these, but she had never lived inside one. They all agreed to leave, but the house wouldn't let them. Every exit looped. Front door to hallway, hallway to kitchen, kitchen to basement. And the basement always ended at Ava's old room, where the windows showed daylight, but the clocks always read 3:14 a.m. Serena tested it by breaking a mirror in the guest bathroom. When she returned, it was intact. Her reflection, however, was no longer blinking. That night, they heard Harper scream. She had gone to the attic alone. She said she saw Ava, or something that looked like her, standing in the corner with arms too long, hair dripping wet. When Harper turned to run, the man was behind her, hand raised, voice calm. "Why are you hiding from me?" He didn't move closer, just watched her back down the attic ladder, step by step, never looking away. She said the air grew thick, like walking through fog made of static. Her thoughts slowed. She nearly forgot where she was. Micah tried to record everything, each voice, each flicker, but the footage always erased itself at sunrise. The only thing that remained was a drawing. A childlike sketch Harper found, pinned to the inside of her pillowcase. It showed 4 people inside a room with no door, and a 5th figure watching from the ceiling. Serena began to sleepwalk again. One night, Micah found her standing in the kitchen, holding the fridge door open, whispering to someone who wasn't there. She was asking if it was hungry, asking if it wanted a new face. They tied a bell to the bedroom door to keep track. It rang every night, but no one ever remembered getting up. The turning point came when Harper vanished for 6 hours. They found her in the crawl space beneath the house, fingers muddy, lips pale, repeating the name Dorian over and over. A name none of them had ever spoken. A name Ava had once scribbled in the margins of a book they found sealed behind the fireplace bricks. Dorian was the man's name, at least it had been. He was buried in the 1800s, according to a hidden newspaper fragment they unearthed in the attic wall. He had lived alone, accused of drawing children into the forest, never charged, but his house had been burned down. The article ended with a sentence circled in black. He never left the house. The house left with him. Micah wanted to destroy the place, light it up, break the mirrors, smash the floorboards. But Serena stopped him. She said Harper hadn't come back alone. Something was with her. Something that looked like Ava, but spoke like Dorian. That night, the house grew colder. Doors refused to open. Lights flickered and stayed off. Harper stood in the center of the living room, whispering in two voices. Her face shifting between calm and terrified. Her hands shaking in patterns none of them recognized. Then Dorian came. He stepped out from behind the drapes like he had always been part of them, scarred, breathing slowly, watching. He circled them, never touching, only speaking to Harper. "You brought them here. They belong to me now." Micah tried to pull Harper away. Serena shouted. The room shook. Walls cracked. Shadows bled across the floor like spilled ink. Harper collapsed. Dorian raised his hand, and Serena vanished. Micah screamed her name, but only Harper remained. Eyes wide, bloodless lips. He said, "She's part of the house now." Micah stood frozen as the room returned to silence. No light, no warmth, just him and Harper, and the sound of footsteps behind the wall.